I'm a 38-year-old man with a beautiful loving wife and two beautiful daughters living in the woodlands of Colorado, in which I've lived in my current home ever since I was a young boy. I've always been one to love nature and animals, to be exact, I'll pet wildlife if I get the chance, while being safe of course, and I've always felt connected in some form to nature. Every time I venture out and breathe the air from the woodlands near my home, usually deprives me of all negativity, of course, with the help of the devil's lettuce at times. This experience happened to me when I was 16 years old, and this is by far one of the greatest but saddest events that happened in my life. It was a chilly autumn day and I was extremely depressed. My father had sadly passed away a couple weeks ago, and for some reason on that specific day I felt absolutely drained. The amount of pressure held within my chest made me feel sick, and with my head being bombarded with the loving memories of my father, honestly made me want to end my life that day. But you may ask, what about your mother or siblings? Well, first of all, my mother was an intense drug user, in and out of rehab, and I honestly felt like she didn't care for me, and to make matters worse, after my father had passed away, she became someone totally foreign to me, and unfortunately, I have no siblings. So at that moment while my mother was probably shooting up and/or battling her own demons, which made no sense to me because I would sometimes try doing something to bring us closer, but she never gave the love I needed, even though I would have given her the love she needed. So nonetheless, I felt so alone, and to be honest I was. It seemed like my soul was slowly fading away and my heart was broken beyond fixing, but I believe what happened to me in the woods was the beginning of my internal healing. Let me explain why. I decided to head to the woods, packed my father's old 1911 with a single round, with the intent to end my life. I walked out the back door and started wandering far into the woods without any hesitation. Though this is a tough situation already, I couldn't help but shake the feeling of being watched, but it didn't bother me, since my mind was being drowned in malicious thoughts of self-harm. But as I wandered further into the woods, still feeling as if I was being watched, the nicely colored autumn trees, the sounds of my shoes crunching on fallen leaves, and the peaceful breeze actually brought a sensation of random peace and oddly enough safety, and like a miracle, my thought of suicide simply vanished. But that thought of me considering to end my life right there actually broke me. It felt as if my mind had been shattered into a million sharp pieces in which I was being profusely stabbed with. With haste, I decided to stop and sit down near this fairly large rock near a flat opening covered with a blanket of autumn leaves. As I sit, I began crying and told myself, what was I thinking? My father wouldn't want me to commit such an act. How can I stupidly savage his honor? What would become of my mother? Would she even care? I told myself. At that moment, I was in a battle with myself, but for some reason in which I can't say nothing for, the setting brought peace like I said before, and I started thinking straight. While regaining a semi-proper mental state, I could have sworn I heard what sounded to be a little kid's laughter from my right into the sea of trees. Also I heard gentle steps crunching on some leaves behind this one tree. For a split second, I could have sworn I saw a little kid peek his head out besides the tree, but it was too fast to know and comprehend, not to mention I was also tearing up, so I thought it could have been my eyes bewildering me instead. But I soon realize I can actually hear the gentle steps which seems to be getting closer with each step, and right from that tree, a small white fox emerged from the tree. Its whole body was covered in pure white fur, almost blinding a little bit. I thought it was very strange. It got closer, and I can make out that its eyes were both different colors. The left eye was an icy glowing blue, imagine the eyes of a White Walker from Games of Thrones, and its right eyes was a glowing fierce orange. It stopped roughly 3 feet from me and gave me a confused look. It even titled its head. I was frozen by its beauty and didn't actually realize when it got so close, it started sniffing me. I took my hand and went for a pet, and by the gods, it did. It even started playing with me. I was jumping up and down and was wagging its tail. I was amazed by this, but then I turned away because I was still crying over my father. I once again burst into tears and placed both my hands on my face, but at that moment, I felt a gentle and fluffy paw on my leg. I looked to see, and the white fox is there with the same confused look in its face. It then proceeded to lick my hands and curled up right beside me. At that exact moment, literally all sadness left my body as if the fox somehow took it right after I curled up right beside me. I was in shock, and then it tilted its head towards me, and its eyes seemed to glow even more, and I could have sworn it gave me a smile, not a menacing one but a peaceful one. It got right back up and something absolutely weird happened, something that will question my sanity, but a whisper entered my ear. It sounded just like my dad, but if he was a child, you may ask how I would know. It's because I would watch his homemade recording of him as a child, and the voice said, "I love you," that whole time. I didn't realize, but the fox was staring at me, as if he was the one that conjured that voice. After that, with my jaw officially touching the floor, the white fox started gently running back into the area it came from. Once it got behind that tree, silence soon followed, but from the corner of my eye, I can make out a small child peek from the tree, and for a split second I could make out that the child stood roughly 3 feet and had small curly hair, fairly skinny with tan skin, and had an icy blue glowing eye alongside a glowing fierce orange eye. Then suddenly, it vanished. The weeks that followed, I didn't stop thinking about what happened. I was in total shock. I did everything I could to see what I could have seen. Was a wood spirit. Maybe a shapeshifter of some kind, maybe it was the ghost of my dad, but I don't think I could have been that since he had no affiliation when it came with foxes. The figure I saw was definitely a child, and to add on, that child looked nothing like how my dad looked like a child, absolutely nothing. The best I can come up was maybe it was a skinwalker, but I haven't heard any stories regarding a kind and child skinwalker. So maybe I will never find out. But without that white fox there, I probably would have ended myself. So in reality, I owe the white fox my life and hope one day we will meet again, but maybe that time will come sooner than expected, because my youngest daughter swore she saw a small white fox outside near the wood lines, and she noticed it had those blue and orange eyes.